boost ignition and lift off, and all systems are go.
Welcome to the Lesbo and the Bean universe. Lesbo and the Bean. LATB, LaTB, where mixed martial arts and the UFC get silly. Big silly. Buckle up and move your tray tables to their upright position. And please, somebody shut that baby up. It's time for Lesbo and the Bean.
Welcome back. Episode 200. We made it.
We here.
A whole 200. LaTB's coming at you strong off of Fort Lauderdale fight card. That was unbelievable. I know the people on the other side of the TV screen might not have understood how fun it was of a show, but here at LaTB, we were live and in person, and man, did the night come swinging. UFC, actually, ESPN deal finally coming through, because I remember this time last year when here LaTB was over in Orlando, and fan experience 0 to none. Weigh-ins 0 to none. It was just not fan friendly. Where here ESPN a whole year later over in Fort Lauderdale, you had your boy here meeting the current champ, DP Dustin Diamond Poirier, also meeting Game Brett, getting some photos, getting some signatures. It was a hell of a better time. Saw Joanna. Who else did we end up seeing? Star-studded event over here at the BB&T Center.
Joanna.
That was a pretty good one. That was a pretty big one.
Vincente Luque.
That was a fun one. Alexei Olenek. And these are just individuals walking around on the street. These were just...
The fan experience was great. We would have got there earlier had I known ESPN was going to step up their game so much.
100%.
The fighters were nothing but kind. Everybody was super humble. Yeah, there was even a bunch of fighters who we didn't meet that we saw around everywhere. We didn't walk up to, like, Tisha Torres at one point because she didn't look like she was down.
She 100%, went out of her way and made a sour face at fans that were trying to get pictures. But you're standing outside of an MMA event, lady. This is your mecca.
You're an A-list celebrity right now.
Exactly. Who else was in that
Rashad
boat?
Evans.
100%.
Which I'm like, I ain't going out of my way, Rashad.
Rashad Evans was doing that fake cell phone where he's like, yeah, I'm talking to somebody on the other line of the phone. Oh, yeah. And there's literally people like, hey, man, I'm driving all the way back to Kentucky. Can I get a picture? And he's just like, oh, yeah, hold on. And then he does straight arms, look away from the cat. It was just like, I don't need, whatever, dude. You ain't that famous anymore.
Whatever, Rashad. Never
Exactly.
gonna be champion Evans.
But JJ was amazing. Every single one of the fan interactions, I saw someone come up to JJ. She loved it. She's definitely living her best life here in the States.
She was not only super awesome to all fans, she was doing full-on face-offs. She was full-on booking woman, nose to nose with random dudes, letting them get pictures. So she was game bred. She was game. The fighters were super nice. Had them sign some things.
Definitely getting the security sweaty in there. You had autographs being asked for, and security all of a sudden jumping into frame in the photos, just like, that's enough. That's enough. So we were making them work. You know how we do here at LaTB, making all sorts of money for everybody around. And if you're listening, if you're subscribing, you're welcome. You're welcome, because there were so many plus money dog plays that we had this weekend. And God, did they come through. Only had one fallout, essentially, for me, but we eventually going to get there. Stuff that's been going around the MMA verse since the weekend. We always break down
Rory McDonald.
every fight. Bellator was in the books. Rory McDonald, it isn't necessarily his fight because it was a split decision draw win that he won against
But
John
a lot
Finch.
of people were saying they didn't think he won.
Correct, but the biggest news from that is actually in his post-fight speech, because he was saying that he officially doesn't have that drive. He doesn't know if he wants to hurt anybody anymore now that he's more religious and lived a little bit longer. He just doesn't know if he's that into it. And he's now essentially trained his whole life to be this monster of a human being competitively, and now he doesn't want to compete. Where do you go? But getting in the cage to get your nose rebroke is not where it is. If he's saying stuff like this, for me, it's like, all right, man, step away, get into marketing, get into whatever else, keep going on your education. But if you're having these type of questions and letting us know, it's really prevalent in your life, and it's obviously you're not putting your best into it, and guys will eat you up. John Finch at 50 years old will eat you up.
Well, it's very, it's reminiscent of the Carlos Condit.
100%.
It's just that total, like, ooh, this is not a sport that you can be half in and half out of. Isn't going to pay off for you.
100%. 100%
And
agree.
it didn't look like it paid off your last fight, even though the judges said different. You know, we see judges make bad calls sometimes. But, yeah. I don't know what to say about Rory McDonald. I've never been super high on the Rory bandwagon. I know he's been in a lot of wars, but I don't know. I don't know if he's a winner. He's a war dog. He's game. But
he's one of the often losers to the biggest fights.
Yeah.
Like he always just a step short, and it hasn't worked out the best for him, but that's okay. Took a shot. He made it a lot farther than most people.
Oh yeah, he made it to he made it to the two biggest shows in the
Exactly.
game. I'm not, you know.
I agree.
I think
His
half heart, half head in. Get out. Be a coach at TriStar.
100%, or just teach gym classes, do stuff like that, but put your health in danger.
I might just be.
He's been at TriStar for his whole career.
That may be the only thing I know about Rory. What else is going on?
So, with some of the other info that's been going around, I guess the post-fight card stuff we should wait till after the card? Or do we get into
about
it
this
now?
fight.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it when we get there.
Right. I'm trying to think of any other stuff that happened over the weekend as far as fighting before we get into our recap of what we ended up watching in person. Because we didn't have the judges' scorecards. Well, we kind of listened to them, but we didn't have Dominic Cruz or John Anik, who were officially on the mic, which I actually saw a lot of people, Evil Twin himself, complaining about how Cruz maybe got a little complacent on the commentary. I haven't heard it because I haven't went back and listened to the fights necessarily, but I didn't miss it. I don't know. It was fun. I was watching live, so I was commentating for the entire section, and nobody complained.
Yeah, and for the people who are just new to the this Lesbo and the Bean podcast, that's now the LaTB podcast. For those of you that are new to the show, we went to the event. I don't know did we specify? We went
were live
there,
in person.
We were there. Fan experience. If you haven't gathered it all up. So yeah, we did not hear Dom. Didn't hear Anik. Didn't hear any of that. I was trying to think in my head, do I wish somehow I could have heard him while I was there on the speakers, on the overhead, or no, not at all. It's good to just
I didn't miss it. I agree. The environment, and I only actually recorded and took a few photos for my phone a few times because I was so busy being involved watching the fights and not trying to record them. I was just like, ooh, this is a real punch to the body. I'm really watching this guy's fist almost go through his face. So it was quality stuff. Where we were sitting, not too far back in the 11th row, we had, if I'm sure you guys heard them, because I know we did, we had the Brazilian contingency that started off every chant was 2 rows behind us. They had bought out an entire row of Brazilians, and there was a Brazilian Bruce Buffer in the stands killing it. He had us rolling.
I don't even know what they were saying all night. Did you translate?
I wasn't translating openly, but yeah, I could understand a lot of what they were talking about.
What were they saying all night?
They were just talking shit amongst each other. They were just bullshitting each other.
No, but even the chants.
Oh, they were just their names repetitively in a chanting voice. Like, what were they saying? Janjiroba, Janjiroba.
Well, I heard some of their names and I knew what those were.
Exactly.
I know how to say Glover Teixeira. But
But
they were saying other stuff too.
Vu mamurer, you're gonna die. That's
I didn't
common.
hear that one as much. They were doing one that I never heard, but I heard it a bunch that night. And I was wondering what it was.
I'm sure there's some chants that I don't know of by far.
I feel like I chanted some things that I could have been. I have no idea what I chanted. That's really what
I totally agree. There was times where we got to be on the same side because I felt like we were the few Americans in the corner, not scared because I'm like, I'm going to chant for who's ever in the cage.
Yeah, sometimes we didn't go for the Brazilian.
Exactly, and it's not. That's betting rules. That's betting rules.
I felt a little hot the first time I stood up and was like, yeah, and cheering for the
And it was just us. Everyone else was kind of scared of these guys, and I'm like, they're being that. Why can't we be that? I paid for my tickets.
And I felt like we got up and cheered at times that they were respectful. Like, I think they thought, okay, they're fight fans.
Agreed.
I've seen Brazil turn on a dime. The whole country of Brazil, like, we love this person who's not Brazilian. So they seem to respect everything. I thought it was a super educated crowd.
I totally agree, but again, we're going to get into it because there was a lot of heat coming in with some boos that happened. We did have some sketchy scorecards. We did have some dirty splits, but we saw that coming a mile away here at LaTB, so you better be liking and subscribing. You know we're starting from the bottom to the top, and at 170 pounds, we had Court McGee coming in against Diego Lima. A lot of people going on Court McGee, slight favorite, tried to get his wrestling going, and De Lima, for the first time ever, actually had his takedown defense come up, show out. Good. He ended up underhooking a lot of those shots, but we were live, and I was noticing Court McGee just looked a step slower than he even usually does. He just, every one of those entries to a takedown was telegraphed, and that's why Lima was just always able to get his left arm under right arm and push him off. And striking-wise, I honestly thought that it was obviously a split decision, but the first 2 rounds could have went to either fighter. I gave them both to Lima. McGee definitely won that 3rd round, and it was because of that knockdown in the last, 10 seconds, 12 seconds of the fight. But other than that, I had it on Lima. It was not the most memorable fight, but what we've been talking about with Diego Lima, if he gets his takedown defense under control, he's going to be a monster and hard for anyone. Starting to get on that track of line. Court McGee's a guy to get in a good train to move forward. I like Diego Lima moving forward. I think he's going to be able to make you some money. He's still a young man. Court McGee, starting to be in those fading fights. People are going to start to use him as a stepping stone more than anything because his endurance and toughness used to get him really far, but now the lack of power and even the cardio issues and then just the slow, it's just too much working against him. I've been waiting to fade Court McGee, unfortunately, and it looks like it's about that time. It looks like pretty much against stiff competition, it's a fade. What did you take away from this fight?
I thought Court McGee won, first of all. I was actually surprised. This is where it all started off, where I was like, oh, okay. I thought he landed the more devastating strikes, and I also think both, if you fade Court McGee, Lima's equally as fadeable. And if you think Lima should go forward, I think Court McGee's right there. I think both guys, they look like they put pretty much the same game plan in. Both guys went for takedowns they couldn't complete, and both guys were okay on their feet. I think against lesser wrestlers, both guys could win. Against better strikers, both guys are getting knocked out. So I think they're both kind of stepping stones. And I don't think Court's a heavy fade yet. I think you can make money on both guys being underdogs going forward. I don't think you should be high on either guy.
I don't disagree with that. I think you're very good, valid points there. On DraftKings, I didn't see either one of these guys over in the top lineup. It was a decision. There wasn't much that went on. So usually if you stick to them LaTB rules, this was a big fat stay away, and you protected yourself from capping out at one of those lower scoring DK points. Moving on to 115 pounds, we had Angela Hill come in against Jodie Escobar, the highest favorite of the entire night, minus 600 closing lines. A lot of people said that it was going to be a finish because Escobar's striking, this, that, and the other, where, yes, we're talking a lot of crap on Jodie Escobar, but I actually feel like she put in one of her better showings she has in a while. There was a lot of missed shots in there, and Angela Hill did capitalize. Angela Hill had one of the better strike differentials of the entire night. When it came to takedown defense, she did really well, but Jodie is just so much lower down the line than Angela Hill that this doesn't really raise my stock. If anything, it surprises me a bit more on how much Angela Hill goes to decision, because a minus 600, that should be a TKO round number 2, submission round number 2. Like, that's a finishing lines type of stuff.
You didn't have a finish, did you?
I had decision as well.
I had decision as well. So if you listen in here, we said the line was way off. Angela Hill would never bring you that kind of money. We thought the whole thing was crazy. And if you stayed away from that too, you're smart. If you went dog or pass on this play with Jodie Escobar, because you could have picked anyone else you wanted, she probably was only worth somewhere in the 20 points. I did not make that decision, so I could not tell you how many points she had, but she probably had somewhere around in the 20 that there were fighters a few fighters that got over 100 that if you picked them and her, you might have been okay, better than picking Angela Hill anywhere. And I thought Jody looked better than she ever had. Angela didn't impress me.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Minus 600, it looks worse for me for Angela Hill more than anything, and I'm just like, I see where you're potentially beatable. Jody isn't that woman, but there's going to be other people that are going to have issues for Angela Hill with things that just she hasn't evolved in. We've been hoping that she has for a while, and nope, she is stuck as a Muay Thai striker with limited takedown defense. So
you know who she looked a lot like?
Who's that?
She looked like baby Shevchenko, big sister Shevchenko.
Antonina.
Yeah, Antonia. Yeah, Antonia. Yeah, she looked a lot like her. It was just that very. It's a style in the UFC. It's that point style. It's that pitter-patter point style.
There was a flying knee thrown in the third round. That was fairly exciting for Hill that half landed, but yeah, minus 600
and she only
wasn't
fought
warranted.
4 weeks ago, but maybe that's the other thing that we're going to see from these 115ers. If you're smart like Angela Hill, you can get off, if you're not taking devastating shots, like, getting your bang thrown around inside your skull, you might be able to take 6 fights in a year, 10 fights in a year. Who knows?
Totally agreed.
Especially if you keep somebody at distance like Angela Hill does her whole fight. Yeah. And her cardio didn't look as bad as normal.
Agreed, but still not super high on either one of those ladies moving forward. At 155 pounds, we had Jim Miller coming in against Jason Gonzalez. If you listen to LaTB, unfortunately, the Bean here had Gonzalez as one of his free bets, and it didn't end up coming out. Jim Miller ended up being the most winningest fighter of all time in the UFC, breaking records, having his family in the corner, ended up squeezing this one down to the ground in the first minute, getting that rear naked choke in and squeezing for dear life. He actually hurt Gonzalez with an overhand right early in that first, and eventually got the takedown to, again, that ending sequence. I've been trying to fade Jim Miller for a while, and he keeps proving me wrong. He's just one of these guys that I just can't not get a beat on, and I don't know if it's external methods. If it's I've seen him so long, I've seen him come back. I mean, he talked again in that post-fight press conference about his Lyme disease and how he survived it. So it's a new him, but he shouldn't be fighting Gonzalez type of fighters. He should be fighting,
Now, you know what I think?
Right.
I think you should stop betting against Jim Miller and start actually picking a fighter who you like. You're just picking anyone against him.
True.
And
That's a good point.
Made a big underdog bet on a guy that you're not high on at all just because you want to fade Jim Miller so bad. That's a good point. I think it could be a good rule for us, like politics. Like, how about let's stop betting against someone and start betting for someone?
That's a great call. That's a great call. I like it. I like that rule.
I had Jim Miller on a couple of my winning cards.
He did show out with over 100 points easily.
And I was so surprised. And I was not in the arena. And I was like, let me go get a drink of water. This is a perfect time for me to go teats and get a drink of water. This will be fantastic. And I heard him come in. I'm like, I got plenty of time. It's the Jim Miller fight. And I heard how loud everyone was. I knew Jim Miller had won because I did not. I heard how loud they were for him compared to Gonzalez walking in.
Right.
I knew Jim Miller had won. I was like, yes, but I had no idea. It was so quick, and it set up with the punch that I can't even believe. Like I didn't see that at all. I had a decision Jim Miller, and I had him on like 2 cards. I did not see a finish at all. That would have been the craziest thing. That was 12-1.
I don't think it was that high, but yeah, he wasn't an underdog. He was a favorite. I think he was a minus 160 favorite.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I guess because Gonzalez was your underdog.
Underdog, exactly. That's why. So had to pick a few. Got one of them wrong, but hey, there was a main event. If you following, you heard the only 2 people cheering in the crowd because it was just us 2 for that main event.
We really were. We were the last ones there.
We were the only freaking one. It was so dope.
There.
It was so awesome. But back to 155 pounds, we had Gilbert Burns coming in against Mike debuting Davis. Mike Davis came off of that USAF loss, but got another win and finally got asked to come into the UFC. Looked good and strong.
Oh, yeah, Gilbert Burns, Mike Davis.
Mike Davis, yep. The debuter came in and just had too big of a step up in competition. Gilbert Burns is also one of these guys that might start to make a title run now, but he's been fighting for long enough in the UFC that Davis just pretty much got his foot in the door in order to take another fight later that might be more of his competition level, because Burns is looking like he's going to ascend to that title shot soon, using his wrestling in that second round. Here, if you listen to Lat B, you heard submission round number 2 from the both of us. If I've ever heard a Lat B rule, that's put money on that round, on that fighter, because it was a submission round number 2.
Yes. And I put Gilbert Burns on all my winning cards.
I put him on a lot of spots
I think I had him on 8 of 9 of my cards.
And he was, I think, the second most win points fighter on DraftKings. I think he was like 122 or somewhere around that range.
Yep.
So Gilbert Burns definitely was one of those linchpins in the lineups to cash out on DraftKings. But moving forward, I like Mike Davis. I like what I saw from him. Again, when he fights somebody that only has one fight in the UFC, that's when it's going to be time to bet on him, because he has potential. Like, just little setup of a fight. And with the arena, this is a thing. There was a lot of the Brazilian contingency there, and early on. So there was a lot of fights where it didn't matter what Brazilian it was. And I even heard a few of the guys in the back say, who's this guy? Who's this guy? Is he Brazilian? And they're like, yeah. And they would just be like, oh, awesome. Like, there was a couple guys that were just like, I'll yell whatever you guys tell me to yell. I'm just here. I'm here to hang out with my buddies and drink $10 beers. So
we're just cheering for all the Brazilians.
All the Brazilians, exactly. And
I'll never cheer for any of the fighters.
I'm only going to cheer for
even sometimes when people were like, USA, USA, it was against a fighter that I didn't like. I cheered with the Brazilians during that. And then there was some guys that I did like, and they were like, USA, trying to start that chant. I don't want to. I don't know what that has anything to do with it.
I totally... But what did you take away from Burns on this one, or Davis?
Honestly, I don't... This is great that Gilbert Burns looks this good, but I just think his skill level above Davis is that much better. I don't know if I still put him in the top of this division. 155 is too thick. I like Gilbert Burns. I think he can be one of those guys that always is like headlining different cards in Brazil. But I don't know. I think he's a dangerous guy, obviously, but I don't know if he's a top tenner. This division is just the thickest division.
It is the absolute thickest
and he's
division.
well-rounded, but I think he just looked so good in this fight, like, landing over 80 punches and 3 of 6 takedowns because of Mike Davis's skill level. And maybe, so I'm interested to see him going up against another tenured grinder.
He lost to Bracheres.
Yeah, so.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So I like Gilbert Burns, though, still, but I don't know how I feel about Mike Davis yet.
On to 115 pounds, we had Carlos Barca coming in against debuting Virana Jandiroba. Jandiroba had a fun little chant that they came up on the spot during her fight.
What did they say?
Jandiroba. That was it. Jandiroba. But then they would even make it faster or slower. And they used it a few times for even other Brazilian fights. So I'm wondering if it has some sort of dual meaning. The way that they were breaking it up. I'm sure I'm not doing it justice. Either way, Jandiroba came in as a debuter. Yeah, because
I didn't know they were doing that at all.
Oh, interesting. You'll hear it. It comes from our section. I didn't get that they were doing her name at all. Oh, yeah.
I was just so into Carlos Barca, I knew they weren't voting for her.
And here at LaTB, we were telling you guys that the minus 140 was way cheap. Way cheap. 8,200 on DraftKings, way too cheap for somebody with that level of credentials against a debuter who hasn't fought level competition. We thought the wrestling was going to take over.
Did you think Jandiroba looked so good?
Not even in the fight. I thought she looked good during the fight. And she looked good against middling competition, but during the fight, I thought it was 30-27. I thought
it was 30-27 too, but as you're saying, like, Carla's just so experienced, I was surprised. I was nervous for Carla once or twice in there, and I didn't think I was going to feel that way at all.
I don't ever remember that, honestly.
I felt like Jandiroba...
maybe hit her with a right once or twice, but that was about it.
Yeah, I was just a little more impressed with her than I thought she was going to be for a debuting fighter against somebody of Carla's level. I was kind of impressed. I was like nervous for Carla a few times.
Janji Roba
I thought it was
actually
going to be a 29-28. I thought
It could have been
might have had a round. But it was probably, I think you're right. I think it was a 30-27. I think 2 judges might have had that.
I agree with that. There was good takedown defense from Janji Roba in this against Sparsa. There was a few times she was throwing in a heavy whizzer, and Janji Roba against little lesser competition, especially now that she's fought someone at level, getting her first loss against Esparza. Nothing to scoff at. Former
and she
champion.
got Carla down 3 times.
It wasn't, yeah. There was reversals in there as well. But then Esparza, remember that elevation she did? That was super sick in like the first or second
awesome,
round.
yeah.
Got a reversal. And Esparza even, I think at the end of the round number 2, got a takedown in the final seconds to clinch it up. But again, that veteranship playing through.
Janji Roba attempted 9 and got 3 of 9. And so that's even
good.
more attempts than
33%.
Carla Esparza, which I know doesn't say, but even just being clinched up like that, she looked like the bigger woman. I was pretty impressed with Carla's strength.
Yep.
I liked the whole fight. It was so much more entertaining than I thought it was going to be.
It really was. It was a fun one to watch. You're going to see Janji Roba in the league for a while, guys. She's going to get better and better. As you're saying,
Is she
there's
a
potential.
young woman?
I think she's only in the 27, 28 year range. So
For a lady, that's another 10 years probably of fighting.
yeah. And when she's debuting
She's
against
30.
Esparza, a third.
Yeah.
That's 6 years for her. Easy,
Yeah.
easy 6
Yeah.
years. So that was a fun one. Carlo cashed me out. I mean, it wasn't my top card of the night, but she was on a lot of
She
my
was
high.
on some winning cards.
Yeah,
for
she
me.
was where I was making cash as well because 8-2, she was over in that 80-point range as
Yeah.
well. Just as we were saying, I think we capped it around 70. So we getting something a little right.
The more we know, the better we seem to do. Some of these, like the flash in the pan or the new people, sometimes it's shaky, but you usually watch enough tape. It's
I
just
try to.
sometimes it's like you watch a guy that's super devastating against all these people, but other people are going to tell you, yeah, I watched this guy beat 14 dudes. But you'll say, yeah, he beat 14 trash cans.
Yeah,
You're
100%.
Like, you know, just saying, everyone. Just saying.
100%. Gotta watch the tape. At 265 pounds, watching the tape might help a little bit. Going back and seeing what ended up happening in this fight and what went awry, because if you know Andrei Arlovsky, you know he gets in dirty splits. Sakai came in as a solid favorite, and Arlovsky actually won the strike differential by about 40 strikes.
I thought Andre won this fight.
I thought Andre won this fight as well.
This is like the third time that I thought the judges were wrong.
On this night specifically? The
No,
second
second
time.
time.
With
Second
Lima.
time.
So I actually ended up switching from Sakai to Andrei Arlovsky later in the week via decision, and I thought Andre won as well. This fight, the biggest attribute that Sakai had in this fight was the Brazilian fans. And this was one of those times where Andre would have cleaner exits, cleaner punches in, and Sakai would only be moving forward, but everything, even if it missed, that was thrown, the Brazilian crowd specifically would cheer for. And judges are human. And the crowd did play a role in, I think, some of these closer split decisions, specifically this fight, because I did hear those guys behind us just go, and they were committed. They did not stop until we got to the main event. Then something showed them up real quick, fast and in a hurry. But Sakai didn't win this fight. I had Arlovsky in this. You win some, you lose some. That's the way it goes. I don't like what I saw from Sakai moving forward. Andrei Arlovsky will forever be in dirty-ass split decisions. You're going to be in a close one with him, so take it for what you will. What do you take away from this one?
Yeah, the same. I thought Andre won.
And you had Sakai. You kept Sakai.
Yep.
Because we both had him on the show, but he
But
looked
really,
flaggy.
just because I'm forever fading Andre. He's like my Jim Miller, and he always just kind of like. Then this time, honestly, I am telling you from a non-biased place, Andre won that fight. And I did not know what I saw. I was so surprised that Sakai won.
Totally agree. That was one of those egregious ones where there was nothing right about that at all.
And because I feel like I went back and like I should have stuck with what I know on this a little bit. Even though Sakai won, I feel like somehow I picked the wrong fighter still. Even though I have Sakai and Sakai
100%.
won, I'm like...
And I switched it to Arlovsky and I'm like, oh, well,
But I didn't play this anywhere.
I
did
agree.
not play either fighter anywhere.
I think I actually had a little bit of exposure to Sakai because I thought out of the two he would be the more likely to be able to finish out of this, but that was also limited, only 1 or 2 cards. That's going to probably be one of those things you do with either one of these fighters, is just try to stay away from them as far as DraftKings perspective goes. At 170 pounds, we had debuting Takashi Sato coming in against Ben Saunders, Florida native, coming in to just prove our point more and more. Unfortunately, or my point at least, that you just can't take the punches anymore. Ben looked good in there the first round, actually stunned Sato with a left straight.
He won the first round.
He won the first round. Ben
Saunders won the first round, striking everywhere.
Kept it striking. Used that tie plum clinch to really beat up Sato. Sato was hurting in there.
Good knees, good elbows.
Yeah, exactly. Sato was definitely feeling it. And what I like from him is he kept on his game plan, even though he was hurt, kept doing what he was doing. And if you're listening here, I'm saying Ben Saunders just can't take the punches all that well. Saw the ground and pound being in the favor for Sato as well. And we had a nice young gentleman sitting right next to us who was very upset, thinking this was an early stoppage. And then Ben Saunders tried to stand up as the ref was like, it's over. And then Night of the Living Dead, the great there, he slid down the freaking fence and was just like, oh, it's a right call. Everybody in our section.
I was thinking of that, that car in the Titanic? Where the steam hand? No, it was a little more brutal than that.
It definitely was, but there was I feel like in our corner, quite a few people that were like, early bullshit, a lot of Florida people, and then as soon as Ben Saunders tried to stand up, everyone went, ooh, okay, good job, ref. That was brutal.
I'm bummed. I was so excited because I picked Saunders for some. He is one of those guys I just pull for. He has such a great skill set, just like you're saying. He cannot take the punches, and even the way it was set up, it really bums me out. I had him on 2 cards because I didn't go crazy with putting him everywhere. And I will say he was cheap enough because he was such an underdog. And he ended up actually getting more strikes than Sato throughout the fight. So he didn't get the win bonus, but he didn't kill. I still had winning cards with Ben Saunders on them. They weren't number 1, but they still cashed.
They cashed.
So, because he was so cheap. But I'm really bummed. He just has a sneaky good skill set, and that 10th planet background, I like everything about the guy, but he is glass-jawed.
Agreed.
He needs to just do jiu-jitsu contests.
I totally agree. All these sub-competitions, stuff like that. For Ben Saunders...
open palm, jiu-jitsu, open palm strikes.
In MMA, would you consider him a fade? Or would we break that rule with Ben Saunders? Because I feel like that's what I've been doing for a while, and it's been working out for me, unfortunately.
I know. I should. Because it's... Sato came back from everything to still have enough power in the second round.
And he was hurt.
To knock him out. So, that sucks.
That does suck. I like Ben Saunders as well. I love Killer B, but I also want to see him healthy and him having a good life after fighting and doing well in his home life. On to 155-pounders. We had a profile fight with Roosevelt Roberts coming in against debuting Thomas Gifford. Gifford came in and went all the way to decision. I was saying, these guys are really alike. I thought the tape was just like, wow, the better striker slightly is Roberts. Not to try to take anything away from Gifford, but Roberts really uses his size really well and to get an advantage over a lot of fighters that he really towers over. So once that was taken away, he was just kind of a regular fighter. We both saw them go for those guillotines. I talked about that on our breakdown as well. I was pretty surprised that they both had shots at them. The fact that Roberts was 9,500 or something like that on DraftKings, he really crapped out by going to decision. I didn't have him on too much because this was just... I can't put that much money behind this young of a guy in Roberts, even though they tried to set him up with this Gifford fight because...
Wasn't he the second most fighter on DraftKings?
Yeah, I believe so.
That's
or the first.
That's crazy as hell. No, Angela Hill and him were at the top.
At the top.
Either way.
Either one of them.
Crazy as hell.
Exactly. But moving forward with Gifford, I'm tentative on him. He didn't really show me anything amazing moving forward. He has a lot of fights in there. He can keep his wits out from under him. Had an okay gas tank and tough as nails. Roberts, that hype train got a little slowed down all of a sudden when he couldn't get a finish. I do like what I saw from his striking, so Roberts is getting better striking, and on the ground we know that he's a beast, so he's growing a bit further, and Gifford is going to stick around for a little bit. With that size, he's going to pose problems like Roberts does to other people. You're going to see him catching weird guillotines on other guys just because of his leverage attributes.
This fight was my low light of the night.
Boring as days.
This was my every fight of the whole night, this was the most boring.
This was by far. Carlos Esparza had a more exciting fight than
Hell
this.
yeah. Carlos was great.
Angela Hill had a more exciting.
I was on the edge of my seat for all
Agreed.
those. This was the most boring fight of the whole night. And I don't know about either guy going forward. They were so similar. I guess I got to see him with another guy. I was like, I bored. I stared past it.
Yep.
I felt like even though I was looking right at the octagon, I don't remember any of this fight. I remember them like legs keep coming up to try to get arm bars, maybe arm triangles and stuff like that. But just like a messy, long fighter jiu-jitsu match.
That's a great call because it was a lot of half setups. Both of these fighters were half setting up the finishing submission move, and they would lock in A and B, and they could never get C to complete the triangle. So
maybe they're just both that good, or both just not that good. So I have to see them against somebody else. This didn't do anything for me for either guy.
I totally agree with that.
But we are at the main event. I didn't know we were on there. See, here's where we start too. Look at all those other fights we just went to, and there's going to be like this, and then obviously another one. This main card's messy. Like the prelims are so good, and then there's fucking good fights on the main card, obviously, but there's some fights that are so non-deserving of the main card when we just talked about from Carlos Esparza to Angela Hill to Andrei Arlovsky to
former champion
people that could be in this spot, much less the co-main.
Former champion Carlos Esparza, former champion Andrei Arlovsky.
I'm gonna dare I say Court McGee could have taken this spot. Like homeboy
he was
Court
more
McGee
deserving,
has more names.
deserving.
So there's just some things. So we are at the main card. So make sure you're liking and subscribing. LATB_MMA, and you can also follow us still at our handle on Twitter, Lesbo and the Bean, and follow Zoltanite over here, and follow Weakneck Baby, and make sure you're going to latherandcompany.com and using that code LATB15 to get your 15% off of delicious bath bomb soap. Different kinds of body frostings. What else?
A ton of stuff. Bath bombs. If your ladies like to take baths, throw in one of these suckers. I call them grenades because I'm like, hey, hun, get in here real quick. And I push her in the bathtub and then I throw one of those in there. She's like, oh, this is really nice. Close the door. Boom. We good. Knocks her out for 45 minutes.
That's love terrorism. That's love terrorism right there. That's like... trip ya, boom, shove your face in some body frosting, and now you smell like lavender.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So use LATB15 to get your 15% off. You'll get your free shipping and handling for orders of 25 or more, and it's all at latherandcompany.com. And if you're just some people that you're just our followers, you can just follow them on Instagram and look at all their stuff, and they have a little button right there that you can press your little shopping bag if you like any of the stuff, and they'll send it right to your house. Just saying.
100%.
That's it. Yeah, so main card. See, we didn't even remember any of that because Roberts Thomas Gifford just wasn't quite deserving yet.
Wasn't it all? Another quick one. If you've been following us, you know it's been 200. Just like to say thank you to all the fans that are commenting on the Twitter, on the Facebook, on YouTube. We see it all. We appreciate it. That's why we keep coming back to you guys and getting these on schedule as much as possible because we're getting the interactions. People are liking what we're saying.
We are a little late, but you guys, we just got really some of the fights that were on this fight card. We lost our voices. Oh. We couldn't even speak. I was burnt out. I had no words. I would have said, we would have been talking about the next fight we're going to talk about, Sandhagen-Lineker, and you would have said, you guys watched it. And I would have been like, whoa, we need a little more than that. So we needed a break in between.
It was a fun weekend of fights, but you need a little decompression time to then be able to hit it hard. Because we got another one coming up in Ottawa, but again, we here right now. And right
you
now,
know what I have to say about the Ottawa card? It don't got shit on the card we just went to.
there's 2 fights, but other than that,
It don't got shit.
True.
It don't got shit.
We, especially with this fight that we had coming up, a dirty ass split decision with Corey Sandhagen coming in against John Lineker. And this is controversial. This is where we're getting all the heat out here in Florida. This is where the crowd was booing at the end of it.
Where's all this heat from? I do not see it anywhere on Twitter.
Ariel was talking about it. Who else was talking? I saw a bunch of like Middle Easies, Mac Malley, other maybe the MMA dude, maybe not, but just like, whoa, if you're booing, they're crazy. Like whoever's booing there is crazy. Evil Twin texted me and said, if you're booing, I'm gonna kick you in the nuts or something along those lines. And I'm like, I was the only person in my corner not booing. I was the only person around me that I thought Sandhagen won that fight. Is that right? Do you remember that? Sandhagen. Damn it.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, you did, but did you pick him?
No, I had John Lineker.
Yeah, I didn't.
I'm unbiased. That's an unbiased. We had the gentleman next to me on the left, you, and people around us all being like Lineker, but I think it was a Brazilian contingency.
I can't even fathom how Lineker won. It had nothing to do with Brazil
Lineker
at all.
won,
I can't fathom how Sandhagen won. I just don't understand how he won in the last minute of the fight and get his head squeezed off.
So, essentially, this was a great fight. There was takedowns on both sides of these. Neither fighter really got hurt. The more damage eventually wore on Corey more so. But I thought that the precision peppering shots, Sandhagen was throwing 3 and 4 jabs and landing all 3 of them. And even throwing a jab, even though it was faint and didn't have anything behind it, it wasn't even scratching up Lineker, but it was technically in Olympic boxing style would have counted as a point. So I saw him almost doubling up on shots to Lineker's. Yes, Lineker's shots were harder. They would knock Corey off of his feet more so, but I thought he had answers to everything, and I saw it being a 2-1. Corey.
What 2 rounds did you give Corey?
Corey, I gave the first and the second, and the second I could say was a 10-10. I could have, because I believe they switched takedowns. Like, one got a takedown, got up, and then the other one got a takedown, and I couldn't remember sequentially who was first.
Yeah, I just I can't fathom at all how Sandhagen won. I thought he that won the first round. I thought that John Lineker eked out the second round. And I thought Sandhagen, he did get more punches in the first round, easy, and then it slowly went the other way as Lineker started to lay more devastating strikes. And by the time the fight was getting over, it was entirely becoming Lineker's fight. And then he finishes, it's so close right up until the end, then he finishes on top of the guy for a full minute where he squeezes him so hard, blood spurts out of his nose everywhere. And I thought, oh my God, he broke his fucking neck.
We had a live view. Like, what our angle, we saw his face. I saw that blood coming out of his face real time.
I thought he killed him.
Yeah.
I thought John Lineker killed him where I had to turn away for a second. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
He killed him. And then I was so impressed that Corey got out of that. He did everything right. He turns his body. He gets, but still, just the way that it finished. I know, like, the argument I hear is always... it's so funny because every single MMA fan I know, including myself, we use a fight metrics when it fits us, and then we say the amount of strikes don't matter when it doesn't fit us. But this one, I see everyone, like, Corey landed more strikes, but if you watch that, like, I even feel like if you were in the octagon with it, if something doesn't hurt you, isn't that what this fucking sport's about?
That's the controversy, is what is a significant strike?
And that is exactly it, and that's why I hate the word significant strike. Either we play the game strike because significant makes it bias immediately.
Right.
Then we're also seeing so many times that we're not seeing the right leg kicks counted as significant strikes,
sure.
Which I also feel like Lineker had some great leg kicks. It's just really questionable, and the one thing I will say for Corey, he looked good out there. He was going against a guy like John Lineker, who did look a little bit off his step. Corey looked like a faster guy, especially in the first I would say 6 minutes of that fight. The other thing, Lineker just whiff. I almost feel like that's why I gave the first round to Corey so handedly, because John Lineker just was swinging at air out there. Corey had such good head movement, and it really I think it took a while for Lineker to figure Sandhagen out. And so I like the direction that they're both going. And I am okay on both sides. I'm okay for boos. I'm okay if you disagree with the judges. I'm okay if you disagree with a bad call from a ref. I'm okay if you disagree with a fighter. If you boo them when they're coming out. If you boo them if they kick someone in the dick or poke someone in the eye. I'm okay for all this. When they're fucking talking to Joe or Ariel or Anik or whoever the fucking dude is in the octagon, they won that time. It's like when you're watching Hot Ones and you finish all 10 wings.
You get those 30 seconds.
You won that.
That you earned it. You earned it.
You won that. I just feel like you won it. This is a competition. It doesn't matter. The rule of the competition is to sway these 3 judges to make them think you won this fight, or not to let it go to decision at all. Right. But if it does, my rule is, and so as mad as I can get that they weren't significant, hey, it swayed these judges to pick them. Shut the fuck up, even though it's me. Shut up. I booed. I didn't like the judges' call. Boo. I didn't have that. Then the second he's up there, I clap, whatever, and I'm going to remember that going forward with both guys, and I thought it was a great showing from both guys. Too close to boo either one.
I agree.
Speaking. That shit I don't like.
I totally agree with that. I second that 1,000,000%. Whether you like it or not,
and this is the other thing I told you.
Those 30 seconds to talk.
I watched John Lineker when they said that Sandhagen won by decision, and he wasn't upset. He felt like inside that octagon, he knew he lost that fight. That's what it led me to believe, the psychology of John Lineker, if I'm looking deep into it. So as much as I wanted him to win, and even though I thought he pulled it off, he eked it out, not enough for me to boo why the homeboy speaking.
100%. And if you do look into that psychology, people that think they won, do what Shevchenko, our girl, look at what happens in a dirty-ass split with Shevchenko. She will let you and your mama know.
Yeah, look at her with Amanda Nunes, too.
Exactly. She's like, no, I won that. Where Lineker's just like, it's all good.
He's like,
Yep. So, I like that piece of psychology. I had John Lineker in that, but I thought...
But for everyone that's hating on Florida or UFC Fort Lauderdale... You don't even understand. We were in Brazil.
That's what I keep trying to tell people online.
Like you don't understand what it looked like in there. But this is what I will say. I looked around the clock. I feel like the UFC audience, in my opinion, when I used to look at it as a non-fan, I thought it looked white trash. Like I thought it looked like
just bleed.
Exfoliate. What's their Excalibur? What's their clothes they wear?
Affliction.
Fighter
organization.
Exfoliate. But I thought it looked like, it just looked trashy. But I'll say, I looked around at this audience. Everybody had a slick ass haircut.
Yep.
There was everybody was dressed nice. There was good looking ladies, good looking gentlemen.
But was that UFC Fort Lauderdale? Because UFC Orlando I don't know if it.
We actually saw we saw a few people that had
Orlando
shirts, but we actually saw a dude from some random stranger that we saw at UFC Orlando. So that was kind of funny too. I'm impressed. I think it's just changing. I think it's getting, I have to say, the ethnicity adding to the sport in the American audience. At least where the fights I've been to, I think it's making the whole thing step up a notch of like the Brazilians and the Mexicans and the Latin feel coming to UFC down here. And the audience, I thought it looked so much nicer than just some random like fat Walmart white dude.
NASCAR. You want to say NASCAR?
Yeah.
You want to say NASCAR?
Their audience is too big.
Nah, they're cool. They do their own thing, but yes.
But everybody had a tight ass haircut. There was some tight ass dresses. There was some big ass titties.
Oh, yes, there was.
And that was just on the men. But there was, what I'm telling you though, you guys, it was motherfucking Brazil. Half that place was fucking Brazil.
100%.
And deep down, I always wanted to chant with Brazilians, and I knew I was never going to go to a UFC fight in Brazil. It just seems crazy in that auditorium. So I'm kind of glad I got like Brazil light.
I totally agree. And you didn't get to be on the side with the Brazilians in the Lineker fight, but luckily at 205 pounds, we did have a bit of a chance to chant with the Brazilians against Ian
I was with them on the
Cutelaba.
Lineker fight, so I was already like, let's get this guy.
I was the only one around that was saying, I thought Corey, like, I thought it was me, and like, I'd see sporadically a couple other guys being like, yeah, he won that. Everybody else was like, nope, nope, nope. And I'm like, I think it's Lineker's name is kind of giving him a little bump as well as the Brazilians, but.
I know the whole auditorium booed. I will say, even though we were in Brazil, the whole auditorium
For the
booed.
decision?
It wasn't just the Brazilian contingent.
Sure.
The entire... I felt like a lot of people that were in the auditorium, I would say 90% of the people in the auditorium thought Lineker won that fight. Everybody booed.
Especially with the ending yeah. It was a fun fight. It was a dirty-ass split. I'm not mad either way, honestly. I'm not mad.
I'm not. It's so goes MMA.
I had Lineker. I'm not mad. I'm just
So
saying.
goes MMA.
Exactly. We're going to get
It
another
didn't
one
ruin
in
my
there.
life.
Exactly. I had, though, luckily the chance to...
I would rather watch that fight 3 more times than our co-main event, but we'll get to it.
At 205 pounds, again, Teixeira came in against Cutelaba, and Ian Cutelaba coming out, hulking out. If you
But
saw
I
the
was going to
pre-fight
ask you, too,
workup...
did you listen to what Sandhagen said in the octagon?
No, and I didn't go back
That
in
is
here.
what I wanted to go and
couldn't
listen
hear
to,
it.
too, because what about if he said something like, I came in here, I put on a real dominant performance? Like, what about if he said shit like that?
I don't think so. I think he's a really nice guy. I feel like he was probably along the lines of like, thanks family, I like to thank my mom.
sorry, you
I like to
guys.
thank my cat. I like to thank my dog. Like, he seems like a really down to earth guy. He paper towels. Like, he doesn't use paper towels, hasn't for years, is a vegan, is super earth conscious. Corey Sandhagen.
Look at how much he likes him now, but he was saying EPO about him before the fight. I'm just saying.
I was
Sounds
excited
like
for that fight either way. I'm just
I'm just saying. But you guys remember. You listen.
Everybody remembers. If you're listening, we told you Glover Teixeira is a lock. Glover Teixeira is a lock.
So you think
Plus
no fade
money.
on Lineker either?
No
Both
fucking
guys
way.
are rad.
Oh.
We like them both going.
You can easily bet on both
Okay.
guys moving forward.
Yeah.
Easily. So, and even Sandhagen on DraftKings ended up cashing out at 100. He was on all the winning lineups. Lineker didn't do bad at that like 50-something range, but I did have more exposure to Corey, and he did end up having me be in that money spot.
How much was he? How many points did he get?
100 even.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
Exactly.
I didn't have him anymore.
I think he was like 7-6.
Oh, I had him on one. I had him on a winning card.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
I had Lineker on winning cards as well.
Agreed. He was able to get me in the cash as well, but the highest scorers of the night had Sandhagen on there. Teixeira was one of those other guys that was on a lot of those high winning cards. We told you at plus money, you better be putting money on it. He turned into the favorite by the end of it. So, was he our bandits bet? Because we had him at plus money, but he turned into the favorite.
I know, yes, he was. And anyone who listened early enough, he totally was.
And then they must have listened, gone to the betting line, and put more money on it because Cutelaba ended up also being minus, I think, 105 by closing lines odds. So essentially a coin flip. But I felt comfortable with my money.
How many more strikes do you think Sandhagen got than to Lineker?
I want to say both Arlovsky and Sandhagen were in that like 40 strike range more than their opponent. Or it could be. Oh, really?
20.
Okay, Arlovsky was 40 then.
And Lineker's, though, you also admitted were far more devastating.
We're harder. You could see it.
So that's pretty, like, 20 fight different. To me, does 20 peppering strikes make up for somebody squeezing your head off for a full solid minute on the last minute of the third round?
But did you give up the takedown by going to a guillotine? Because he's on bottom, so therefore, the guy on top, does he deserve a takedown? Even if you pull guard, because if you pull guard, it's considered a takedown for the other guy.
Even if he got the takedown on it, at what point is the takedown, if it's a reversal or if you take down and the other guy makes it to his advantage or the other guy gets up?
Right.
That's zero control. So control time has to mean something as well.
I would agree with that as well.
I just would say the only definitive time of control in that whole fight was that moment.
Yes, it was a submission attempt. The only submission attempt.
Still not worth a boost, Anthony.
So
now
Ian
Cutelaba. We were Brazilians this moment.
Yes, for this moment against Cutelaba because he came in being all sorts of jerky. Didn't want to shake Glover Teixeira's hand at the weigh-in. Glover actually took offense a little bit. He was kind of like, oh, fuck you, dude, okay. Then Ian Cutelaba walked over across the ring and did the "you're gonna die" during...
He did the pirate across the throat.
Which he's done multiple times. It's Ian Cutelaba's thing. The only thing with that is you gotta have a gas tank. You got to have a gas tank if you're gonna be coming in here doing these type of things. I feel like this was pretty much the Cannonier fight over again. We broke this spot on. We both had Teixeira submission. We both said, if he gets out of this first minute, or out of this first round, every minute that this fight goes on, Glover's going to have it in the bank. He did get hurt in there with some hard shots. Cutelaba throws hard uppercuts, hard left hook, goes well to the body, but gasses, and not only does he gas, he gives up when he gasses. He doesn't go in there and try to finish you. He's just like, okay. But before we even got there, there was a eye poke, multiple eye pokes, and then there was an illegal knee to Glover Teixeira on the ground, a kick to the nuts, and then there was another kick to the head that barely missed. The crowd was going fucking apeshit against Ian Cutelaba.
Because a lot of the times the ref didn't see shit.
The ref was one of the worst refs I'd ever seen. He missed a lot of these shots, and the crowd was... The reason they didn't let us have plastic bottles in there is because we were going to throw them at Ian Cutelaba.
And you know what I was thinking as well? Someone we were with got a plastic bottle earlier in the night in their drink, and then later in the night weren't allowed to get them. I think they felt the vibe get up, and the security was like, no more plastic bottles.
Yep, like cut those.
Yeah, they were like, oh shit, Brazil's here, no more plastic bottles.
They're too dangerous. But the crowd was livid in this fight. Cutelaba, I think that played into his head as well, because I thought that I could not only see him gas, but the crowd all of a sudden was like, nobody was a fan of Ian Cutelaba in there. And it was just a matter of time. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, look at these body shots are adding up. Oh, he's going to the ground. Oh, he's covering up. Cashing money. If you're subscribing,
Do you
tell
think
a friend.
Ian was winning the first round?
I think he won that first round.
Yeah. And then it was just almost like we told Teixeira, hey, just curl up, take a bunch of shots, and...
he's not going to be able to breathe.
That'll be it.
At the beginning of the second. And sure enough, that second round, completely different. Just look, Cutelaba had maybe 3 strikes in him, and then was
defeated.
like, fuck.
He gave up. He gave up as he wanted to get submitted. He gave up. He did that old Conor McGregor.
I think
he did that old Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz.
I thought he did a Dmitry Smokliakov, but we're going to get there.
He was trying to piss me off.
Moving forward, I think Ian can still win a couple fights. And Teixeira's still in that top echelon. I do think he's declining a little bit. Those shots are adding up a little bit more. They are hurting him more than he used to be hurt, but he's an older guy who's had a lot of fights, of course. Ugh. I'm definitely less excited moving forward for Teixeira.
I feel the opposite. I fade Cutelaba, and he's not ready for the big leagues, and I got Glover as an underdog on a fight or two coming up, because I think that's the mentality.
A lot of people are starting. Yep.
But I think these guys are just playing smarter. It's like something has clicked in UFC, and they're just playing a little bit smarter. Did
you hear Corey Anderson on Joe Rogan's podcast? Now that
I have not listened to it yet.
He's starting to have regular MMA fighters on here. Weird. We've been saying that for years. Finally, he's starting to do it. Getting all sorts of stuff. But really interesting as far as what you're saying as well. Corey Anderson, I thought, was fairly new school. Come to find out, isn't that new school in his training method, hardcore wrestler, but now the PI, as you're saying, is really changing all of these guys' minds. They go to the PI for 1 week, and every single one of them is like, I can't believe I'm in the UFC with the stupid stuff I was eating. With the stupid, like, they just realize, wow, I could really be optimizing. So,
what PI?
The Performance Institute that UFC sponsors.
Oh, okay.
Right. Whatever fighter goes there, like, they hook them up to all the bells and whistles, and they're like, no. If you want to be your body type, digest chicken better than beef. Don't ever eat beef again. Like, crazy blood work
do
and
all
stuff.
next level and tell them what to eat, drink, how to cut weight better, probably better nutritionist, who to look up in their area, blah, blah, blah.
Everything. They give them all the connections.
So awesome. And I also think something that's changed just in my lifetime of UFC, the dropping of hard sparring. That's just since I've been watching. Like that
100%.
No one's hard sparring anymore. And I think that we're going to see just that much better results of these fighters and longer careers without
There
it.
is guys still hard sparring, but they're limiting it to much, much less. They used to do it like 3 times a week. Now these guys are like, we do it like 3 times a whole camp compared to.
I think it's super smart.
I totally agree with that. 100%. On to 170 pounds, fight of the night. We had Mike Perry come in against Alex Oliveira. This was arguable for me for fight of the night. I had fun. I was cheering for both sides. The dance-off on the way in was the highlight of the night. And it was all Alex Oliveira. All of the Brazilians getting into it. I mean, Mike Perry getting into it. That's going to be a legendary dance-off for years.
Mike Perry knew he was in Brazil. He was so smart, and he said he felt the energy and all that stuff. But I think now you have somebody now in Mike Perry that you can fight in Brazil against, like, not a Brazilian, and they're going to love him.
They're going to love him. I totally agree. I totally agree.
That was so fun. These
it was
guys
so fun.
Could have a sitcom. I love these guys together. I'm like, when's their podcast coming out? Platinum and the Other Cowboy.
I was going to say Platinum and the Brazilian Cowboy. The fight, I mean, it was a scrap. Perry got hurt in that first round pretty good. Out of both fighters, I'd say Perry was the most hurt, but he got his center back in, got his head under him, and ended up picking apart Oliveira with that boxing. Oliveira had better leg kicks in there, but back and forth, I did think that Mike Perry was dictating the fight.
They didn't boo for Mike Perry?
Not one bit, because they both these guys scrapped hard. That would, yeah.
Just saying.
True. It was that ending sequence for Sandman and Lineker. That's what changed everyone's mind. Everyone was like, oh, yeah.
Even the judges.
Perry Oliveira, though.
Not the judges. Perry Oliveira was a scrap, and it was a close fight.
How many spinning heel kicks did Oliveira throw?
It was a crazy fight. I didn't even have a winner in my head when it was over.
Yeah, I totally agree. I felt good about either one of the guys. It was an exciting one, but technique was a little bit out the door. That's where it was one of those that's like, if you get El Casual fan, anybody looking the first time and they just want to see a brawl, put that fight on and you're going to get 2 guys brawling in there, doing whatever they can. Was there a humongous freaking slam in this fight? Did Hulk Hogan come in here? Or who was it? Macho Man? Who was Mike Perry faking when he went down to Colorado and he wore the Macho Man stuff? He ended up going off of the top turnbuckle and throwing Oliveira and then falling back on his own. Oliveira getting up. Do you remember that highlight? Oh, Mike Perry literally picked up Alex Oliveira over his head and slammed him.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable fight.
It was so much. I was just thinking of Platinum Princess in there. This is his first fight as a married man. So that Andy's on a win.
True.
I thought he looked better in there than he's ever looked. He seems like he is getting better. I hated on him a little bit last episode, and he is getting better. Mike Perry's getting better. Alex Oliveira, like you're saying, he was messy in there. He was sloppy, but I don't think Mike Perry bought into it as much. He looked... I thought he won the fight. By the time it was over, I thought he won the fight. I didn't think it was close, but I think I'm remembering the whole thing. I just felt like he was a little more dominant.
Yep.
They were 2 such characters and so much fun to watch.
I totally agree. I do think Perry won the last 2 rounds.
I want to rewatch.
I agree. I need to sit back and rewatch it.
And I do have my my verdict. If you guys are following us on Twitter, you can also attach your verdict to your Twitter account and follow all the people who you follow on Twitter. So it's kind of fun when you're doing MMA. You can have your bets against them and stuff.
It was a good time. I ended up doing all right on that verdict one. Ended up scoring out all right on that. But I remember my entire ones. We'll have to look at those. Yeah. Either way, with this fight, I like them both moving forward. Oliveira is going to be the guy who's more of a flash in the pan. He's going to knock guys out as much as lose fights, where I agree with what you're saying. Perry's turning into much more of a technical fighter at this point of his career. So, looking good and forward. I really love the introspective talk that I hear from Perry. But he is a wild man. He is a wild man, and I love it. These guys should get a sick died? No, I did not.
He almost died, and Jacare Souza saved his life.
No, I didn't hear the story. Please, keep going.
He was doing neck exercises, and I guess there's a neck exercise that you like put a band, you hang it from the bar, and you put a band here, and it's one of those like performance bands the ladies work out with their legs, and you do it, and you like pull your neck down, and it makes your neck stronger. Well, he went at the same time, and I guess the band rolled back, and he said he 2 seconds.
Like, he was knocked out, yeah.
Totally knocked out. Yeah. And he hung and he fell from the band and he swung into like a metal rod and it like he chipped his tooth and Jacare Souza had cameras there and he was like no one was around him. He was just and Jacare Souza had cameras around. He was like sparring or doing something for the cameras and he noticed him and went over and picked him up and like woke him up. Really? And he's like, yeah, and so he's like, so he saved my life.
That's dope. That's a pretty cool Jacare Souza. That's a good thing that he did. Definitely helping out Mike Perry. But as you're saying, these guys should definitely get a sitcom, Platinum and the Pal, and I'll be watching.
Platinum. And then I want to give credit. I don't want to say the wrong one though. So I'd rather just say, go to YouTube and look. Somebody was just like, all of the Africans are so happy that Mike Perry won because of how much he drops the N-word. And they like mix in Ngannou and Adesanya and Usman all dancing.
Yusuf. That's horrible and funny. Wow. One of a kind. Yeah, could say that about Mike Perry. He's a one of a kind.
But friggin' Alex Oliveira is one of a kind too. I like both guys going forward as dirty underdogs.
Totally agree.
Both guys are going forward.
Totally.
Mike Perry, is he going to be able to get good enough to make a run at it? I don't know, but I want to see him fight Darren Till next. I think that was the best. That's a
call out of the night.
That's a perfect call out, and I could have Mike Perry in that fight.
I agree with that. They have sparred before together. Spa together before.
And he just wanted, he's like, somebody's got that number, and I want that number now. I want to crawl up the rankings.
It's a good call out for sure. And then probably the most disgraceful thing we've seen in a really, really long time in UFC.
More disgraceful? I changed from Greg Hardy because of how I let my emotions of how much I dislike him get into the way of it. And so I actually switched to this other
Smoke Liakov. So you're saying you switched from the Michael Jordan of MMA.
From the Bo Jackson of MMA. He's going to shame Bo Jackson.
Piece of crap. Absolutely disgusting. I don't know why I dislike him. There might be a clue out there. Look it up online.
Do you think it's because he's the Prince of War?
For me, what it is that he's a dropout of the NFL and his second choice is MMA. So it wasn't even his first choice, and I was like, okay, well, I can't do that anymore, so I'm going to do MMA, and it's like, it shouldn't work that way, but you are a super athlete in a division that is lacking with people, and your namesake is getting you a lot further than you are, because, again, his technique and skill is power and athleticism, and eventually that's not going to pay off for him, but either way, we had Greg Hardy coming in against Smoke Liakov at 265 pounds for the co-main event. The boos were coming in as Greg Hardy was walking out. We went to go buy shirts at the arena, and specifically there was one that said UFC Fort Lauderdale black in the front, or with white lettering in the front, and I was like, ooh, cool, I want that one. The worker was like, oh, that's really nice here, and then she turned it around and showed me the back, and she's like, oh yeah, and it has their faces, and I was like, oh, hold on. I don't want that face. I didn't know that one was that one.
Yeah, you would have been fine if it was just Hermanson Souza.
Oh, I would have loved it. That would have been a dope-ass concert t-shirt.
Look, I just said Hermanson for the first time. Hermanson. It does matter.
Yes.
Hermanson Souza. But, yeah, you would have been fine. But Greg Hardy, Smoliakov?
Get out of here. I didn't want either one, especially Greg Hardy in there. So I was like, hold on. Give me that nice teal and blue one, because I don't need that guy's face on the back of my shirt. And the lady who was what? a 60-year-old grandmother who was wearing a fanny pack doing the shirt sales was like...
she didn't know anything about fights.
She know nothing about fights. She's like, oh, yeah, isn't there something going on with one of those guys? I was like, yeah, I don't want that shirt.
She's like, you don't want a wife beater on the back of your shirt?
She said that to me. And I was like, and she's like, yeah, nobody really likes that. I was like, thank you. Give me that teal shirt. So...
I wonder if you can hear people yell "wife beater" on TV because
there was quite a few people yelling that type of stuff, and I didn't give him that. Like, I didn't do that. So either way, I just don't like the way the UFC's playing it. So hopefully they don't put him in a co-main event. Maybe a headliner prelim on the early prelims.
I'm okay to let somebody, if they... Even if you make a mistake of something and whatever your debt to society is and you pay that debt to society or that person's forgiven you or whatever the question may be, I can move on and think people can change. But there's just something right down to the core of Greg Hardy that I don't like. I don't like his look. I don't like something about him seems creepy as fuck.
So it's not the beating. It's not the abuse. It's not the style of abuse.
It's not just that at all. Like, I don't like his face. I don't like the way he talks about himself. I don't like his nickname. I don't like his fighting style in little baby air quotes.
Which, this is one of the few times that Dana White has actually openly come out and said, hey, if I ever thought fights were fixed and was a new fan, this fight would be fixed because Smoke Liakov, again, had nothing there. I mean, he ate a couple punches, shelled up, turned around, and then it wasn't even officially a KO. It was a TKO because he went fetal, sucking his thumb on the way out, and the crowd hated it just as much because the crowd was just like... And we were watching Dana White. I mean, Dana White and the announcers were 11 rows ahead of us, or 15 maybe tops rows ahead of us. They were so close.
Amanda Nunes and Nina Astaroff. Yeah, they're down there.
They could hear us. We were yelling at them.
Yeah, we wanted Nina to come up. Because everyone, Amanda, obviously. We were like, we should yell for Nina.
But either way, Dana White himself said, hey, we're not into setting up fights. And look at many other fighters. Eddie Alvarez's run. Many other guys that have come over from other sports and leagues. UFC traditionally gives them hard-ass fights. There's times where I'm like, man, come on. Let's build this guy up more. UFC's like, nah, fuck that. They're fighting. Gaethje. They don't come in and give them nobodies. Mariah's in that same boat as well. They give you top-level competition, and this guy, they're giving softballs, and now he's going
what through. I really think, now just why you're saying it, because you're so friggin' right, even like if you take Brock Lesnar, like a guy who, like, when they brought him over, well, but look at
Frank Mir, former champion, that's a fucking beast!
But what about CM Punk? Or, you know what, Brendan Schaub.
Brendan Schaub was a nobody. UFC made Brendan Schaub. He was an NFL line guy. He didn't really make it, but I think Brock Lesnar is one of those. They gave him Overeem on his second fight. Alistair Overeem. Maybe third fight. UFC doesn't do people favors traditionally. So
maybe because it's the ESPN era.
Yes.
It's because he's known
football
by a lot of the football people. Yeah.
That's exactly it.
So they can talk about him building up. This is I'm cross-promoting it right now. I'm Sue-saying. This is what's happening.
Let's hear it.
ESPN also has rights to NFL football, right?
100%.
So now you have NFL football and you have your guys that are doing their rundowns when you look at the ESPN sports channels of all the guys that just let ESPN play all day, every day. If you can make this guy have not only wins in a co-main event, but also maybe a run, then you might be able to pull a lot of those eyes that are slowly turning off of watching NFL but need violence in their life. And they know Greg Hardy.
Right.
And now they have a story of little background stories. They could be like, and he overcame triumph to win his third fight in the UFC. And they're building up all this. They can play those between NFL commercials and NFL games and NFL bullshit. New eyes to the UFC. New eyes to the UFC.
But
it's an ESPN favor.
But even with those guys, because what a lot of those NFL players for me are going to remember, they're like, hey, remember that guy who was so shitty that they had to kick him out of the league? There's other guys that have been caught dragging their wives through an elevator like a rag doll, and they got to stay in the league. This guy did something that much worse. Like, that's his reputation coming out of the league. It was so bad that they couldn't fucking protect him. I just don't, as soon as someone else looks into that, they're like, yeah, of course, they're all heathens. But again, this happens. I don't know. I think you're also right in what you're saying. It's kind of his look. It's his demeanor. It's like he, again, is saying he's going to come in and be this all-star. And from what I've seen from tape, and you know me, I watch a little bit of tape, just a little bit. I'm not seeing what everyone else is seeing as far as a fighter. Yes, he has eyes on him prior to the sport.
Oh,
but
I never
fight
watched
skills,
tape, and it is embarrassing watching
right?
him more.
You're just like, this guy's all athleticism. As far as technique, please let Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis has been calling for this fight. Have you heard it?
No, I was just about to ask you. Who do you want to fight? Who do you want to knock him out?
Well, anybody who's half a fighter, not a top 10 or even a top 5. I don't think Derek Lewis, because he doesn't deserve that right now. But specifically because Lewis is like, oh, that guy beat his wife? My stepdad and my mom used to fist fight every day. I hated it until I got big enough to stop him. And he's like, I don't like women beaters. I'll knock him out. And I'm like, yes, come on, Black Beast. Let's go, baby. Let's go.
Is he big enough to get that fight? Or what do you think? Where do you give Greg Hardy next on a win? Who cares about Smolikov? We never need to see that.
We never, and he's not. He's out of the UFC officially because he turtled up in there. I feel like he's officially gone on out of here. But Greg Hardy, someone who's beatable, or who do I think they're gonna give him? Because it's not gonna be Derek Lewis.
What do you think?
I think another softball, somebody with a weak chin.
This will be the third softball.
Yep, and I think potentially could be an Arlovsky because they fought on the same night, even though Arlovsky went to decision. Arlovsky has the weak enough chin. But this is where what they're gonna do is want Arlovsky to lose in there, and we're gonna be like underdog money on Arlovsky because after the first round, this guy can't fucking lift his arms.
I don't think anyone will ever think if Arlovsky fought him tomorrow. I think Arlovsky
is a favorite,
a plus 400 favorite.
I think this guy has that much fucking hype.
That would be so interesting. You guys tweet at us what you think the odds of Arlovsky versus Hardy would be. I just think it's interesting.
I agree.
I can't even Greg Hardy. There's no way he'd be a favorite against Arlovsky.
I think he'd be a 2-1 favorite over Arlovsky.
I think Arlovsky would finish that fight in the second round.
I think, if not third, but I agree. Like after the first round, Greg Hardy will be done. But they need somebody who's chinny.
Okay, what about
all right,
Ian Cutelaba versus Greg Hardy?
205 against 265.
Oh shit.
So, any other ones at 265? There's enough riling around there. I like that Arlovsky one though. I think that one might be perfect little spot.
Oh my gosh, that is such a big step up.
Huge step up, but that's the type of caliber that'll be able to beat him. Probably the biggest step up that anybody took all night long was at 200 or at 185 pounds. We had Jack the Joker Hermansson against Jacare Souza Hermansson.
We both know better. It's just we heard so many people say it wrong.
So it is Hermansson.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jack Hermansson, the Joker himself, came in. If you're listening to LaTB, all you got to do is set a like on there and subscribe because you're getting it for free. You're getting it for free, ladies and gentlemen. We're giving you underdog picks that you can take to the bank. How many main events have we had an underdog? Usman, Masvidal, Hermansson, even more so, other underdogs out. It's just, for all we're asking for is a subscribe. Tell a friend. We told you guys, hey, Jack's looking a little bit better striking on the ground.
And he's scarier on it.
Yeah, he's scarier than people think on the ground. He's got stronger hips. Mike Perry actually saying, I started working with Jack Hermansson. Hermansson has the strongest hips I've ever seen. Watch people under Hermansson. They don't like the way he grabs onto you.
No way. He flattens him out better than anybody else in the game. And he says it himself. He has the best ground and pound in the game.
And if you're listening, we called it. We did have a finish for Hermansson. And he almost got it done in that first round. He almost was dead to rights. He went for that reverse triangle. That John Danaher reverse triangle. And Jacare defended it properly. He was stunned, and I think that submission, as close as it got with the stunning, started a snowball effect for Jacare. And Hermansson, striking-wise, was keeping Jacare at distance. He didn't throw as many oblique kicks as I thought, but he didn't need to. He was landing a jab. Jacare was landing better strikes, but like we were saying with that Weidman fight, Weidman was picking him apart up until that knockout, so Hermansson could mimic that, and he essentially did without as many kicks. First, second, third round, fairly decidedly went to Hermanson. Fourth round was the only one I could actually give to Jacare Souza. And, I mean, in the second round, the Brazilian started walking away. It was just Lesbo and the Bean yelling at the top of our lungs in the corners.
The whole auditorium was empty by the fourth. Everybody knew it by the end of the third.
I was actually really excited because I felt like Hermanson and their corner could hear me because there was that many people leaving. It was that quiet that I was just like, yeah, come on, buddy, you got it, Joker. And I could hear it echoed. It was echoing by that point.
I wanted to go
crazy.
Ole, 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 ole. I don't even know if they do that there. But I just wanted to do something that wasn't Brazilian. They were so loud for so long that then when the whole auditorium, we were the only ones like, yeah.
Passion, we're just saying, we put money on him. We were telling you guys a week ago.
I guarantee you that the camera doesn't even point out at that fight at all to the audience because it was so fucking empty.
I guarantee you
I never seen anything like that. It was like no one gave a shit.
Look at the end. Look at that fourth and fifth round in the crowd, and that'll tell you how many Brazilians were there that day. So you get a feel for just kind of the contingency that we had. Americans definitely
even the Americans that were there,
true.
No one gave a shit about Jack Hermanson.
True.
But, it's a damn shame you walked out because you're going to watch somebody make a run and they're going to be wearing a belt one day at 185 and you're going to be like, shit, I didn't watch him beat the one time he was fighting in my state, you dumb.
100%. And we kind of had it here. We were like, Jack Hermanson's going to make, it's a coming out party. Like, this dude's going to turn heads. He's going to be someone you're talking about. We saw this.
Where's Jack Hermanson? Like, Souza, he's at his kind of peak. He's going to be obviously a top 10 guy. He's going to still beat guys. He is getting up there, but he seems to still have great power. Jack stifled him everywhere, but Souza had a great chin. He overcame tons of really dangerous shit in the first two rounds.
Souza's left body shot that whole night was deadly. There's a lot of other guys that I think would have given up that body shot. Souza kept landing that left of the body constantly, and there was even, I feel like in the fourth, why I gave it to Souza, because Hermanson finally bent over a little bit and got super defensive, but I
felt like Hermanson gave the fourth away. Like, catching his breath and just took a rest. He said himself, too, that he had unbelievable cardio. He's like, no one knows what kind of cardio I have.
I have a feeling like we might have talked about it a little bit.
He jumped around so well. He was on the tips of his toes for 5 rounds. I was really impressed with how well he moved toward the end. Susan never looked like he really had it in there. Even in the 4th round that I gave him, I felt like Jack's taking this round off.
I remember talking to you and being like, he's probably resting. He just won 3 rounds in a row. He's probably resting. We'll win the 5th. As long as he don't get submitted, he's winning this fight.
Yeah, and I think
Souza didn't get close.
Yeah, Souza never looked good, and there was a time we thought they were going to call it in the corner because Souza wasn't going to get off his stool.
100%, and I bet they didn't show that on the cameras as well.
Yeah, I was wondering if we really thought, and
it's
that's
over
when everyone
in the
started
4th.
to leave.
It's over in the 4th.
Think he was going to get back up.
Yep.
Very crazy, very
so
crazy.
good.
But where Jack Hermanson 185? Is it Chris Weidman time?
That's it. I've been hearing people talking about it, and I totally agree. Even though it kind of is a step down, is it not? Because Souza just came off of a Weidman win.
Souza was guaranteed the title fight if he won, but Jack isn't quite there yet. I do think he needs one in between, but I think it's almost perfect timing if you put Whitaker Adesanya with the co-main, Weidman versus Hermanson on an Australian card, and then have one of those guys prep for title fight if somebody falls out of the main, if they do it smart like that for like 240,
right?
UFC 240. I think that's super smart, and I think the winner of Weidman, because Gastelum kind of skipped Weidman in a weird way, that I think then you give, but that right there, but that's his only shot because Adesanya skipped him as well. So Weidman fight Hermanson, and the winner gets that fight. The winner gets the fight champion, and then they're on the same heel schedule. I just did all the work for you, UFC.
You're welcome.
I just did off the work for you. But yeah, UFC Fort Lauderdale was so much fun. And I think, what I will say, booze or not, we showed out well enough for the UFC to want to come back and the fighters to want to fight here.
That arena was full.
It was so much fun, you guys.
It was so much fun.
I can't wait to be doing it with Vegas with other nerdy fans or other places. We're going to be traveling soon. We getting bigger. You never know. Maybe we'll get some other sponsors, and maybe one of them will be an airline, and it'll be free flying.
Well, We'll get there. Maybe we'll have to be our own sponsors by winning all these fat ass plus money bets that we're throwing out here for people.
We're going to get back on schedule. We're going to tighten that nut up. It ain't summer break. It's springtime. We got new hours. Everything will be coming good. We'll get back on that schedule. We'll get your show. We'll get your breakdown show at you before the sun comes up, before winter falls. Oh, see, we didn't even talk about Game of Thrones. No spoilers.
No spoilers here. That one's too good. Catch up wherever you can.
Oh, Bran died. That's how I'm going to leave it. That's it.
Let's go to the beat.
Thanks for listening to LaTB. For all things Lesbo and the Bean, head over to lesboandthebean.com or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.